APIs are the backbone of modern apps. That's where Expo Router API Routes come in, making it easier to define and manage backend logic right inside your Expo app. In this video, we'll cover everything from the basics of API routes and handling requests to advanced topics like streaming responses, integrating OpenAI in a secure manner, keeping your API keys safe, and even deploying your API routes along with your app. Let's dive in. Alrighty guys, so for this video, I'm going to be referencing this document that we have in the Expo docs. I'm going to leave the link in the description as well. And you can also find the link of the source code that we're going to be creating down here in the description. Now let's go ahead and create our Expo app. For that, I'm going to be using Expo Router Form Components, which is a repo that Evan Bacon created. And basically, it's like a repo that comes with common components for Expo apps. So let's go ahead and copy this command to create our app. By the way, I highly recommend that you come here and learn more about these components, and using this template is going to get you up to speed super quickly. So yeah, let's go to the terminal and I'm going to paste this command. I'm going to call my app Expo API Routes Video and hit enter. Okay, after a moment, this is ready, and now we can see into the API Routes video folder, and I'm going to open this in Cursor. So here I have a quick demo of what we're going to be doing today, guys. So as you can see, this is going to be compatible with web and with light mode. So if I switch this to light mode, it still looks amazing. So we're going to be learning about API routes, the basic get and post methods, but as well, we're going to be covering how to do streaming. And for that, we're going to create this simple input that is going to take a post, and then when you press this button, it's going to open a modal screen and it's going to stream data from ChatGPT in a formatted way, by the way. So that allows you to have a custom UI. For example, in this case, I have 4 sections with the recommended title by the AI, and then the content fixed by the AI, and as well what AI thinks about this post and overall quality of this post. So this works on web, and let me show you the demo on mobile. I'm gonna just press this button on mobile and we have the streaming working seamlessly, and it's also compatible with dark mode. So here I have my newly created application. I'm going to say npx expo start and hit enter. Then let's open this in Expo Go. By the way, we're going to be using Expo Go since this is totally compatible with Expo Go. Okay, and if I reload the app, you can see that we have the template that we are using Backend components. So let's work a bit on the UI that we want to achieve. By the way, if you are ready to start implementing the API routes, just check out the timestamps down below and you can skip ahead if you need to. So the first thing that I want to do is just go to the index. So, and as you notice, this is a very large page. So I'm just going to delete almost everything. So I'll start by deleting this, and then I'm going to leave just one form section and then delete everything else. And now my component looks cleaner. This is all I have. And down here, what I'll do is just create some dummy data to display some components. So I'll create this arrayed dummy post, which contains 3 items with an ID and then text, and then is liked. This is totally optional just for the UI to look good. So I'll go ahead and remove this image, hit save. This is how it looks so far. I'm going to change the navigation title to be home. Okay, and if I reload the app, you can see that we can see the home now. And for the form section, we can have a title. So I'm going to say create post. And we can also have a footer, which is really nice. And I can pass a string, for example, create a post to share with friends. And you can see that this is looking super nice using these components. So I'll remove this view inside this section. And now I'm going to create a form.hStack. This is going to align items from left to right. And inside of this, I'm going to create a new text input using the regular text input that comes with React Native. On the right, I'm going to have a form link. We can use a form link like so, and we need to pass an href. So for now, let's just go ahead and go to the info page. Inside this form link, I'm going to have an icon symbol, and we can import this component like so from the components. And this is going to get the color, and I can use the Apple Colors System Orange, for example. It also needs a name. So the name is going to be Sparkles. And if I hit save, you can see now that we can see this button, and it's going to take me to the info screen, which is totally fine right now. So I'm going to go ahead and create a style for this text input. It's going to be a super simple style that I'm going to put here in line, which has the following properties. And then I'm going to be using the color scheme to change the color of the text. And we can grab this from React Native. So let's import this. Let's hit save. And now you can see my input there. In the H tag, I'm going to add a style as well and just add a gap of 16. Okay, so let's continue tweaking a bit the icon symbol. I'm going to use a size of 30. And another cool thing about this symbol is that we can actually specify an animation. This is for iOS only, but it looks amazing, so I highly recommend using it. In this case, we can specify this effect. Since this is using the native symbols for iOS, we can specify, for example, polls, and you can see that we have this animation. So after this section, let's create another section. And this section is just going to iterate over these dummy posts that we have in here. So if I hit save, you notice that we're able to see them on screen. This is super simple. It's just rendering a link for each post. And for each link, it's rendering the text as well as this system image if the post is liked or not, right? So these posts are dummy data right now, but we could actually fetch them from an API route. So let's go ahead and see how we could do that. So to create an API route, the first thing that you need to do is just go to the app folder, create a new folder. I would recommend having an API folder since in most cases you're going to have more than one. So let's go ahead and create a new file, and I'm going to call this API route post. Maybe you can also call it post handler, but in this case, to keep things simple, just post. And then in order for Expo Router to know that this is going to be an API, we need to say plus API. And this is going to use TypeScript, so .ts. And this is how it looks. So super simple stuff. Now, another thing to keep in mind is that we need to go to the app.json before we can actually use API routes. And on the web section, make sure that the output is server. It could be that it's static right now. So if you're going to be using API routes, make sure that this is server. So let's go ahead and hit save, close this. And now we are ready to start using API routes. So I want to go to the docs. Let's go to the documentation. This is how a simple API route looks like. So let's go ahead and copy this. Let's go back and paste it in here. So as you can see, this is just a function that is exporting this get method. And this get method, it's implying that we're going to be using a get request, right? This is a get request handler. So we can also get the request in here as parameter, and then we can return the response. So let's go ahead and hit save, and let's try to hit this API. So we can do this in here, or I can just go to my terminal and even do a curl. So if we go back and see the port that we are using, so by the way, I would recommend restart the server after adding your API route, just to make sure that everything is working. And as you notice, this is running on the port 8081. So if I do a curl to 8081 and then say /API/post and hit enter, you can see that we get the hello world super quickly. And that means that this is working just fine. Cool. So let's go in here. And now this is actually server-side code, and you could do anything that you want in here. So for example, we can add a console log, get request received. Let's do the curl again. And you can see in the console that this is from the server. We can see the log in the console. So same thing for a post request, and here cursor is actually giving it to me. This is how a post request looks like. So let's see how we can actually hit this from our front end or from the client side code. So let's go back to the index screen. And now what I want to do actually, instead of having, this post hard coded in here, maybe we could get them from the API. So let's go back to the get and let's delete this. Data, it's going to be equal to this post. So I'm going to paste this data in here. I'm going to hide the terminal for now. And then let's return this data. So we can simply do that like that. All right, so now we can fetch this. Let's go back, and to fetch this, let's use a simple use effect from React. So I'm going to pass an empty array, meaning that I want to trigger this fetch when we load the screen. So let's create a function. This is going to be an async function called fetch post. And we're gonna get the response using the fetch that comes with React Native. And then we're passing the path. So this is actually wrong. I'm going to be using just post. We don't need to pass the plus API. That is just for Expo Router to know that this is an API, but when you are actually hitting this route, you just need to pass the API post, the name of the file. Cool, so we get the data and then we put in the console, but actually we could have an state variable called post. Let's import useState from React. And in here, instead of putting this in the console, we're going to set the data. And then the use effect is going to call this fetch post. And finally, instead of having this hard-coded dummy post, we're going to bring this post from the API. Okay, so this is complaining because this is not typed. So we could type this in here by saying that this is going to be an array of post, or in this case, we could also say an array of any, just so that this is super simple stuff. So we don't need to type it, but you could add the type in there. Let's reload the app and see what happens. Okay, and nothing is happening. And the reason for that is because this actually would work on web. Let me just go ahead and open this on web. Okay, and as soon as this loads, you can see that we can see the post in there. And this is actually not working right now because, this is not going to work for mobile devices unless we add the following configuration to the app.json. So let's go to the plugins, and in the Expo Router, I'm going to wrap this into brackets, and then we can specify an origin. So in this case, I'm going to just say a link that you might want to use later. Expo API Routes video.expo.app. Okay, so let's hit save and let's restart the server and reload the app. And let's see if this works. This time now is working because we are setting the origin, which means now we know, the base URL for mobile devices. And this is going to work for Android as well and for, web. So if I come to the website and reload, you can see that we are fetching this data. Okay, so this is coming from the server, which is super exciting. So the same way that we're doing this, GET request, we could do a POST request passing some parameters. But for the POST request, I want to do something more complicated, right? I want to be able to pass the post and then send that to ChatGPT, OpenAI in the backend, and then, ask ChatGPT to improve my post and then return that to the user, streaming the response so that it's fast. We can actually do that with Expo Router in an easy manner. So let's go ahead and close this request. So let's leave this post in here for now and let's stop the server. So since this Expo app is going to be a full stack application, we can actually install packages that are only for backends like OpenAI. So I'm going to say bourne install OpenAI and SOD. I'm going to be installing SOD so that I can provide some schema to ChatGPT. This is actually new. You can provide a schema to ChatGPT, basically asking for a specific data structure in the response. So in this case, I want to ask ChatGPT to provide a title, a content of the post, any thoughts about the post, and an overall score for the post. So we need to use SOD for these kind of validations. And that's it. So let's go ahead and install OpenAI and SOD. We're going to be using this, of course, in the backend. Okay, so that's installed. Let's go ahead and start the server again, or maybe we can just leave it down for now. So now I'm going to create a new route inside my API folder. I'm going to call this AI plus API, since this is going to be an API. And let's say export function. In this case, it's going to be a POST request, since I'm going to be getting some parameters from the client. And what I'm going to be getting is actually not the prompt, but the content of the post. So I can grab this from the request. So we need to await this, of course, which means we need to turn this into an async function. Cool, this is how it looks. Okay, so now let's take this easy. I'm going to put this in the console just to see if we are able to get this content. So I'll say console log from the server content. Let's go to the client and let's actually store this input in a variable. So I'm gonna say post content. Yeah, that looks good. Then let's go in here and set that to the text input. Cool. Now, when I press this button, I actually want to navigate to a new screen. So instead of going to the info screen, I want to go to the account screen. Since we already have a lot of pages in this app, the account is this screen that you can see here. This is a modal screen. So let's go ahead and clean this up a little bit. I'm going to basically delete everything. And then I'm just going to, use the same components. I'm going to be importing text from React Native. And then I'm going to be using as well platform from React Native. So this is how my screen is going to look, basically a form list. And I'm just adding this, title for the web, since this is just going to be adding this title for native. So for web, I want to hard code this AI post analysis title. Then I have a section that is going to show the AI response.title. So for now, let's say title in here so that we can see how this is going to look. Content, thoughts, and at the end, we're going to have the post rate. I'm going to import this button from React Native. And for now, let's go ahead and comment this color. Now let's reload. Of course, the server is not running, so I'm going to say npx expo start and then reload the app. Cool. So now if I go to the screen, you can see that we have this AI post analysis, and this is how it looks. So super simple UI. But now the cool thing about this is that we're going to be able to actually stream data into these sections. So let's see how we can do that. So let's go back to the index screen. And when I press this button, I actually want to use the href, but we can actually specify the path name. And in this case, I'm going to go to the account and we can pass parameters to this screen. And the parameter is going to be the post content. Okay, so this post content is going to be accessible in the account screen. And we can access this post content using the use local search params hook that comes from Expo Router. Okay, and then the post content can be utilized anywhere. So we can put it in the console maybe. Okay, let's see what happens if I navigate. In this case, it's going to be undefined. But if I actually press this button and type something in here like test, you can see in the console that we get this parameter. Now we can use this post content to make the post request, right? So when we load this page, we can actually use another use effect to trigger the, the fetch of the data. So let's go ahead and create this use effect. And then down here, I'm going to create a function that is going to be an async function called fetch post analysis, right? So this is going to hit this endpoint. Remember that we don't need to have this. Now this is going to be actually a bit different. But yeah, anyways, let's just leave this for now as it is. We are passing the method. In this case, it's a post request, which is effectively going to hit this function in the server. And then we are getting the data in the response. We can put in the console, and then let's call this function inside the use effect. Okay, so now in the console, we should be able to see this log since we're going to be hitting this endpoint. Let's see if this works. Okay, and post request received, and we're getting a hello world. Okay, and this is actually expected since we are hitting the post instead of the AI. So let's hit save. Okay, from the server undefined. Let's clear this and let's go back and do the same. Okay, so undefined. So this means that we're hitting the endpoint and it's totally fine since we are not, I think we are not passing the content. Yeah, we need to say content and then pass the post content. Hit save. Okay, now we get the test from the server, which is good. We're getting this error because I think we're not returning anything right now. We're just putting this console log, which is fine. Anyways, since we know that this post request handler is working, we can actually start implementing the server-side logic. And the first thing that I want to do up here is going to be, import OpenAI and actually initialize this. And then Z from SOD for the validation. We already installed these dependencies. That's why we are able to import them in here. Then I'm creating a new instance of OpenAI. Of course, we need to have an OpenAI key, and we're going to get that in a moment. Down here, I'm going to define the response schema that I want to use for my ChatGPT response, right? So I want ChatGPT to respond with an object that is going to have a title, content, thoughts, and post rate. Let's get the OpenAI key. So you can get your API key from OpenAI by going to platform.openai.com and then logging into your account. And on the right, you can see that we have these settings, and on the left, you're going to find these API keys. So let's go ahead and press in here. So if you don't have any key, you just go ahead and create one by pressing this button. This secret key cannot be shared with anyone. And if you share this with anyone or put this on GitHub, anyone is going to just grab this key and start using ChatGPT, and you're going to get charged for that. So just copy the value that you have in here and then go to your project. So back to our project, we need to create an end file to store this securely. So I'm going to create a new .end file, and then let's create this API key. So I'm going to copy the name, I'm going to paste it in here, and then paste the value of your key in here. So once you have copied the value, just go ahead and hit save. Another thing that you need to do is quickly add this to your Git ignore before you forget. Otherwise, you might end up sending this to GitHub. So I'm going to add this .env, and then this file is going to be ignored. Couple things to notice here is that this secret key is going to be utilized only in the backend. So we don't need to say something like Expo public, since this is actually a secret key, and this would be a mistake, because if you set something that as Expo public, that means that it's going to be available in the bundle of your application and anyone can get the API key. So since this is going to be handled only on the backend, just make sure that you don't prefix it with Expo public. This is going to be just used in the backend. And yeah, this is how it looks. So after that, just go ahead and close this file. Okay, so up to this point, we should be able to use OpenAI because we have our API key. And then we have the schema that we want ChatGPT to respond with. And finally, down here, I'm going to have a quick validation that just is going to check if we are not passing any content, just return a no content provide response with a status of 400. Okay, and now here we have the business logic. So for that, I'm going to use a try catch. And if we have an error, I'm going to actually return a response of 500. So since we are going to be streaming data, this is going to be a bit different because this route is going to be streaming data. We need to actually set the streaming. And to do that, we need to initialize these variables, encoder, stream, and writer. Then we can use ChatGPT. So to start a stream of the response of ChatGPT, we can create a new variable called completion, and then call OpenAI, which we are importing up here, initializing up here, and then we can access the beta chat completion. By the way, beta, I'm accessing beta because the format response, it's not available in other models. So make sure that you're using this model, using the beta chat completion stream. So we are creating a stream, then I'm specifying the model that I want to use, and then I'm just specifying two messages for the conversation. The first one is going to be what I want the model to do. So in this case, I'm specifying, okay, you are an assistant that helps improve posts for social media. You will be given a post and then you will need to improve it. That's all. And then the user is going to provide the content, right? So the content, we are getting it from the request, and we're going to pass it directly to ChatGPT by saying, hey, here's a post. Okay, that's the entire conversation, and this is an array of messages. You can extend this if you want. And then, because we're using this really nice response format feature, we can pass this SOD response format that we're importing from OpenAI helpers. Then we pass the schema that I defined before, which is just having a title, content, thoughts, post rate. The cool thing about this is that you can just create a new field, and ChatGPT is going to add a response for that. So you can say recommended content or SEO performance, score, and things like that. And ChatGPT is just going to fill that with data or with a text. So yeah, we can pass that and just pass a name for this format. In this case, it's going to be post. And that's it. I'm going to minimize this. Now, we can add listeners for this completion stream so that we can handle more business logic and specific things. So, for example, after this, I can call this event listener on, and then we can listen for these contents. As you can see, we have many. So in this case, I want to listen for two things: content delta and then content done. So when the content is done, I just want to close the stream. So we can say writer.close. And when the content delta, this is actually going to get the parse data, and we can take that and add it to the writer like so, as you can see here. So we are basically just passing the data to the writer. And once that's done, after that, we can actually return the readable stream. So by just saying return your response, passing the stream dot readable. Again, this is coming from here. And yeah, this is just setting some headers. So after this, we should be able to get the stream response. Cool. So let's go ahead and hit save and close this. This is the entire logic that we need for the backend. Now let's go to the post request. And a couple of things that we need to change here is that we're not going to be able to use the simple fetch function that comes with React Native, since this function does not support streaming. Thankfully, Expo has an implementation of fetch that supports streaming. So we can import from Expo fetch, and I'm going to import fetch. So I'm specifically using the Expo fetch implementation that supports streaming. So this fetch is going to be used in here. So we actually need to specify the entire, the URL plus the path. So to do that, let's go ahead and create a simple helper function up here. Basically, I'm going to define my base URL. And it's a good idea to use the same that I have in here. So let's go ahead and use this one in here. So this is my base URL. Then I'm going to need to import constants from Expo constants. And yeah, so this is just a log that I actually can delete. And this is basically going to generate the API URL given my API base URL. And this is actually going to work as well for production environments. So right now, the node environment is going to be development, which is going to set the origin to the API URL based on where this is coming, either for web or it's coming from Expo, for example. So it's going to replace that and actually use the base URL. And if we are in production, we're going to be using the API URL plus a path, okay? This is how it looks. So now we can simply copy this function, and instead of calling this in here, I'm going to generate API URL, and then we can pass a path. Okay, cool. So now everything else remains the same. This is going to return a stream response, so we need to handle this a bit differently. Let's go ahead and declare an interface for my response. Since I already know that ChatGPT is going to return me this data structure, we can create a type for that. And then inside my component, I'm going to create two variables using useState. So the first one is going to be the AI response, and the second one is going to be the partial JSON. So since this is going to be a stream, we actually need to process each chunk of data that we're going to get, and we need to kind of clean this data and then put it in the AI response. So this is going to be the one that is typed, and the second one is going to be just type of string. Okay, so let's go back to the fetch post analysis. So I want to add some validations in here. First of all, if we don't have a response, just go ahead and throw an error that says failed to fetch response. And then instead of doing this regular thing, we need to actually get the reader and decoder. So we can simply do that by saying reader equal to response.body, get reader, and then new text decoder. We need to process these chunks like I said before. So we can have a while loop and say, while we have stuff in the reader, just grab the stuff and put it in the text variable and then decode that using the decoder. So passing this value stream equal to true, and then we can pass the text. So this is going to be the text that is needs to be processed, right? Needs to be clean. So for that, I'm going to use a helper function, or a function that we can just create ourselves, that is going to get the chunk, which is a string. And then we have this variable called accumulated data, which is using the partial JSON. And as we are just concatenating the chunks that we're getting from the stream. And then we're parsing this and setting the AI response and setting the partial JSON to be, again, an empty string. If you have an error, just set the partial JSON to be the accumulated, and that's it. So yeah, this is going to do it. Now we have these two little warnings. What I can do here is just just go to the TS config and set strict to false. And actually that should fix that, or we can ignore that. But yeah, I think that's all we need, guys. So this is not actually super complicated. We can stream data using fetch just by using the reader and the encoder, using this while loop to concatenate the data that we're going to get and process the chunk. And once that's done, we should be able to, instead of hard coding this title, we should be able to come here and use the AI response dot titled dot content thoughts, and even we can pass the score in here. So let me uncomment this and hit save. Let's try to restart fresh. I'm going to say npx expo start and then reload my application on the right. And then, hey, this is a post test, and then press the button. Okay, boom, and it's doing it. Okay, and the text gets super smaller, and I think that is because of this section. Okay, I think I found the issue. So inside the form, line 340, we have number of lines equal to 1. That's why the text was getting smaller. But if I comment this line for now, you can see that we get the stream working fine and actually very fast. And you can see here my ChatGPT score was 8. So you can actually play with this and see if you can get a 10. Okay, create a cool post. Nice, so it's doing it and it's working super fine. So let's see if this works on web. I'm going to go back to the website and let's try to say hello world. Okay, and actually I cannot see my icon. Let's go to the index. Okay, and that is because Sparkles actually it's only available for iOS, so we can validate the platform. So if the platform is equal to web, then we can just use Sparkle, since I already know that this is actually an icon that I can use. So I can now see the icon and then press this button. It's going to open the modal on web and it looks super nice. And from here, you can do anything you want. Okay, cool stuff. This works, but it's only in our local host. So let's go ahead and deploy it. So to deploy, we can simply run EAS deploy. So make sure, by the way, that you have EAS installed in your machine. You can check that by running EAS-version. And if you don't have it, just run npm install globally EAS -CLI. Okay, once you have that, you can use EAS. And yeah, so now I'm gonna say EAS deploy, and I want to deploy directly to production. Let's see what happens. Okay, cool. I forgot that we need to export the web platform. So let's go ahead and copy this command and paste it in here. This is going to create the web bundle on the left. So we should be able to see a dist folder, okay, that is going to contain the bundle of my application. So you can see some of the routes, and as you can see, the backend or the API routes, it's kind of getting detached of my application since this is going to live on the server somewhere. So this is why it's secure to use as well environment variables in here or secret keys, right? Cool, so now we can run again EAS deploy production. Oh yeah, and I get this warning because I'm using the template. So if we go to the app.json, okay, so if I go to my app.json, by the way, this project, I think it's already using EAS. So let's go ahead and delete that. And by the way, you can also change here the bundle identifier and everything else. But let me try to run that again after deleting the project ID. And now this is going to ask me if I want to create a new EAS project. So in this case, I'm going to say yes, and that's it. So now I need to choose a preview URL. So I'm going to be using Expo API Routes video.expo.app. And let me close this. Let me go to the index. And boom. So actually that's deployed right now. That was super easy. And I want to go here and just double check that my now deployed URL is going to match the one that I'm using in here. So I'm going to paste this in here. And yeah, this is how it looks. Now we can access this in production. So let's open the website. Okay, and I'm in the website. As you can see, this is the deployed version. And we can say, hello, please create a post. And then press this button. and this is going to work seamlessly in production. Okay. For some reason, I don't see the overall post quality, but everything else looks fine. And the cool thing about this is that actually every time that I press this button, I get a new recommendation. And this time I can see the quality. Cool. And of course, guys, this is going to work in production for your mobile apps as well. So from here, guys, don't forget to check out the source code. I'm going to leave it in the description. And don't forget to go and see the API Routes doc if you want to learn more about API Routes with Expo. With Expo Router, you can seamlessly manage API Routes in your React Native application while also deploying them alongside your web version. From handling requests to integrating AI and streaming responses, you now have the full picture. If you find this video helpful, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions or any suggestions for more videos, and otherwise I'll see you in the next one.